I am Suzan. Today I want to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in the AI conversation, everything that happens around the model. And as a developers, we spend a lot of time obsessing over architecture, benchmarks, and parameter counts. And of course that matters. But if you are building in Europe or European users, the model is maybe 20% of the problem. The other 80% is what I want to walk you through today. So let's start with something we all experienced. You build a prototype, it works great in your notebook, you show it to the stakeholders, they love it, then you ship it and it falls apart. Why? Because demos run on clean data, controlled inputs, and zero accountability. The real world gives you none of that. Users do things you never anticipated. Data shifts, edge cases multiply, and suddenly your 95 accuracy on the test set means nothing when the 5% failures are the ones that actually matter. So this gap between demo and production is where most AI projects die, not because the model was bad, but because nobody designed the system around it. So yeah, this code captures it perfectly. AI is a system, not a model. The model is a component, an important one, sure, but it sits inside a much larger system of data pipelines, infrastructure, human processes, and feedback loops. When we treat the model as a product, we set ourselves up to fail. So let me break this down into 5 layers. Actually, this is where most develop their time: training data, feature engineering, model selection, tuning. It's necessary, but it is just a starting point. The second one is the infrastructure. This is really important question because there are questions we should ask to ourselves, like how are you serving this model? What is your latency budget? How do you handle scaling? What happens during an outage? The third one is deployment. Continuous integration, continuous delivery for machine learning is still not a solved problem for most teams. How do you version models? How do you roll back when something goes wrong? The fourth one is monitoring. This is where things get really interesting and most teams are weakest. Your model's performance will degrade over time. If you are not measuring that, you won't know until users tells you, or at worst case, they won't gonna use your product. And the fifth one is really important one. It is the human layer. It is really important who is in the loop. Who makes the call when the model is uncertain? Who's accountable when something goes wrong? This is not nice to have. It is layer that determines whether your system is trustworthy or just technically functional. So where does it actually go wrong in practice? Points, and these are the most important ones I'm going to share with you. The first one is poor or drifting data. This is the number one killer, actually. Your model was trained on data from 6 months ago, and the world has changed, has moved on. Your inputs look different now, and your model doesn't know it. The second one is hidden bias and feedback loops. Your model makes a decision, and that decision generates new data, and that data trains the next version, and the bias compounds. This is subtle and hard to catch. Third one is overconfidence in outputs. LLMs are especially bad here. They will give you a wrong answer with the same confidence as the right one. If your system doesn't account for that, your users won't either. So the other one, lack of monitoring. And I have seen teams deploy models and then they never look at them again. No drift detection, no performance tracking, nothing, and it's really important one. And finally, the misuse or unexpected use. User will find ways to use your system that you never designed for. That's not a bug in user behavior, that's a gap in your system design. So why Europe changed the picture? Now, everything I've said so far applies for globally, but if you are building in Europe or deploying to European users, there is an additional layer you need to think about. Europe has taken a fundamentally different stance on AI governance. This isn't about slowing things down. It is about building differently from the start. What it means. The EU AI Act takes a risk-based approach. Not all AI is treated the same. For example, a recommendation engine for movies and a system that decides someone's credit score are fundamentally different in terms of potential harm. And the regulations reflect that. It focuses on use cases, not models. The same model can be low risk on one application and high risk in another. The regulation cares about what you are doing with it, not what architecture you chose. And it introduces accountability across the life cycle, not just deployment, but from design through monitoring and decommissioning. This means documentation, risk assessment, and transparency are engineering requirements, not afterthoughts. And for developers, the practical implication is clear. You need to think about these things at design time, not after you already shipped. So what responsibility looks like in practice? Here is the thing, responsible AI is not an ethics checklist you take off before lunch. It is not a slide in your pitch deck. It is an engineering discipline. It means building systems that fail gracefully. It means designing for the cases where your model is wrong, not just the cases where it's right. It means having the infrastructure to detect problems and the processes to respond to them. This is hard work and it is ongoing work. Responsibility isn't a phase, it's a property of the system you maintain over time. So before you deploy anything, if you run through these questions with your, I think it would be really helpful to understand responsible AI, governance AI. The first one is, where does data come from and how can it change? If you can't answer this, you are building on sand. The second one, who relies on this output? The answer determines your failure tolerance. A content recommendation is different from a medical triage system. The third one would be, what happens when the model is wrong? Because it will be, do you have fallbacks? Does the user know the output is AI generated? And the other one, how will we detect problems after deployment? If the answer is user will tell me, user gonna report the bugs, that is not monitoring, that is hoping. And finally, who owns decision made with AI? This is really important because accountability, it really refers to the responsibility. This one's uncomfortable, but it matters. When your AI system makes a consequential decision, there needs to be a human in chain who is accountable. So I know what some of you might be thinking. This is for big companies. I am just building a small app, pay enough. But here's the thing, small apps grow. Side projects become products. And the decision you make early about handling, about transparency, about failure modes are much harder to retrofit later. You don't need to build a full governance framework for your weekend project, but thinking about these questions early, even formally, will save you enormous pain down the road. And frankly, it will make you a better engineer. What to remember? So let me leave you with 4 things. AI systems fail beyond the model. Most production failures aren't models failures. They are system failures. Responsibility is a system property. You can't bolt it on. It has to be designed in. Europe adds governance, not obstacles. The EU AI Act isn't there to stop you from building. It is there to make sure what you build actually works for people. Developers shape AI outcomes early. The choices you make in the first few sprints about data, about architecture, about failure handling set the trajectory, and you have more influence than you think. So yeah, the title says building AI survives reality, and I think that's the challenge. Anyone can build AI that works in a demo. The hard part is, and rewarding part, is building AI that holds up when real people use it. Real data flows through it, and real consequences follow from it. So that's the work worth doing. And thank you for your time. I would love to take the questions.
So guys, feel free to ask questions. You can unmute microphone or you can type questions on your on chat.
I have one question.
Oh,
Yeah, could you please summarize just shortly, like to have a key takeaways and what the steps and how to be more secure conscious of building, just a few key knowledge. Thank you.
Yeah. So my background is in cybersecurity actually, and especially the regulations help the developers to understand how to build their systems. For example, if you are working in with ISO 27001 and like NIST and right now EU AI Act, you could understand much more about the frameworks. And this is really important for developers to understand the frameworks, then they can develop their own products and apps on it. So I think it could be summarization of the whole session because, yeah, it looks a really short cut for this session, but like you need to read much more paper about it, and you can have your whole framework on that kind of specific regulations on other kind of cybersecurity guides.
Thank you.
thank you. And also Mark wants to ask something here. Raise hand. Mark, feel free to unmute your microphone.
I have a question. With the Europe AI Act, how can we balance between using powerful as hosted model like Gemini and the requirements for data software engineering? Is the local AIG the only solution?
Sorry, can you write the question because I didn't get the whole.
Okay.
But Gemini is safety model already regulated.
Sorry, Anna, did you say something about Gemini?
No, I understand that question. Oh, yes. So Mark type question. With the EU AI Act, how can we balance between using powerful US hosted models like Gemini and the requirement for data sovereignty? Is local reg the only solution?
Uh,
Yes.
yeah. Most of the European companies, they try to build their system on their local environments. And when it comes to for example, using AI in companies, I could give an example for my company. They are using like Copilot, and they have many regulations, and they have their own compliance team, and they check everything beforehand. So they, in that case, they could use it. And I don't believe that they have that kind of distance when it comes to the US hosted models, because it depends on how you build your whole system around your frameworks, around security. I hope this question.
Yes, and one question from Simonia. Am I correct?
It's not because it is most secure way. It is because like EU is much more concerned than the US. So that's why they try to have every right to build their systems, and especially with the EU AI Act, they don't try to stop you using, but they have like we need to have the whole check and regulation so our users could be much more safe when it comes to data sovereignty and PP like personal information, especially because you never can feed the data if it's personal info, especially when it comes to AI and if you use in your company.
So is it clear now? Okay, thank you. And also I shared link so you can follow this link and read more about this regulation. Suzan, we did it. My